right, I hope everybody had a safe and great 4th of July. I watched them fireworks. My wife had issues last year. She's not touching them this year. But I want to get into something that I'm seeing in the comments, not everywhere, but I'm seeing it, and on the Twitter. Did we get hustled by the Steelers? We've been hustled in the past. We got hustled with Sue. We got hustled with Ramsey. We got hustled with Hill. We got hustled with Chubb. Did we get hustled this time with Minkah Fitzpatrick? Did we get junk? So I'm going to cover that. But first, guys, the likes, subscribes, comments, and views. That's how you do it. I see so many people just started this thing, and they are so good at promoting themselves. So I've got to work on that, guys. It's not easy for me. So please, if you can, like, subscribe, comment, and view. And if you're already doing that, I'm so grateful. It means everything to me. Anyway, let's get into it. Clearly, as I said, we've been hustled before. It always gets presented like this is the move, this is the trade, and it ends up, whether it's short term or long term, it wasn't. But I want to show you why the Steelers, who I think is probably one of the top organizations in the league as far as consistency, I wouldn't put them top. I'd put Baltimore and some other, especially Baltimore. Baltimore's the best, but they're right there. So we know our history, which is less than that. And so it's very easy to say, Greer is just desperate. He screwed up. In a way, he was desperate. If you saw the John Smith podcast with my man Tehran, he said Ramsey wasn't coming back. He wasn't playing. So Greer, who I don't like, you might not know that, but he was in a very difficult situation. He wasn't getting the trade value that we would hope. He was locked in with John, who wanted a lot of money, and Ramsey, who didn't want to be here. And so the trade for picks wasn't happening, and it was really about trading players. So if you look at the Steelers, they're not stupid. But that doesn't mean that they gave us junk for good stuff. Good franchises build with the team in mind. Not like us, Greer, who likes to just get shiny objects and put it on a team almost like it is no rhyme or reason. But when you look at the Steelers, they definitely had serious holes at cornerback. They were bottom 5 in the league in all passing coverage stats. And with Rodgers in this year, they were in a small window to win. And from a team concept, they needed an extra tight end. They lost their tight end who they signed in free agency a few weeks ago. They needed it for offense, and they certainly needed coverage guys on their defense. Take a look at this graphic, and you could see the holes there. Yes, Elliott, who we didn't think was anything, they gave him a nice big contract. They're riding with him. He's an excellent in-the-box guy. They got Slay in here, who's older, so you got to worry about injuries. But then they had Bishop, who is not a guy. And then they had Porter Jr., who they spent a really sizable pick on, but who really hasn't come along. And so if Slay goes down, they're doomed. So they bring Ramsey in here, who is also older, but he gives them depth and excellent starting talent so they can play more man, so they can get after quarterbacks. They like to blitz. And both these guys can help bring Porter along and maybe get him to be where they had hoped. So clearly, I think this was just a smart move on their part. And if you look, yes, Minkah played pretty well. I'm going to read a quote from Al from 3 Yards Per Carry about what Minkah's best at. But they brought in Juan Thornhill, who was at one time a very good very good cover safety for the Chiefs in 21 and 22. He played very well, got them one Super Bowl. Then he became a free agent. They didn't want to pay big. Lots of teams aren't going hot and heavy on that free safety. You can get a guy with a limited skill set to play there. So he went to the Browns, where lots of stuff goes to die. And he didn't have a great 2 years, but it wasn't terrible. But he was plagued with a calf injury. But he was a former second-round pick and at one point played very well. So they felt the additions of Jonnu, the additions of Ramsey would offset the loss and their secondary with Minkah going out and Thornhill stepping in. So from a team construction standpoint, they felt like the sum of the total was worth the loss of Minkah. Now, Minkah's not bad, but look at the difference between the two secondaries before and after. You could see, yes, it's PFF, but they raised the overall level of their team, of their defense, especially the secondary, and Thornhill can come in and play that free safety position. But Alf, who I love, I love him. I think he's a great guy. I think he's super smart, offered a great information, cogent information, some of the things I talked about, but he just really kind of nails it in his tweets. So you see here in cover 3, I don't like Minkah as the deep 1/3 safety. I like him as the hook and curl and flat safety. That will make him effective against TEs, and he's still a great tackler. As the 1/3 guy, he's wasted IMO and is not very good at it. Continuing in the second tweet, part 2, Miami has to play Minkah close to the LOS, similar to how the Ravens played Kyle Hamilton. I mentioned that when we first traded for him. He could play a little bit of that chess piece that Kyle Hamilton used to play. It's kind of morphed. He's kind of now playing the free safety more, at least last year. But that's something they needed because Weaver wants to run that McDonald's system. Continuing, as a deep guy, he's wasted, and IMO is not very good at it. He tends to take cheese, hunt picks, instead of covering ground and creating angles to run off the hashes. And this is a great summation. Remember, Minkah, for whatever you say, you might say he's 15th, but he is playing out of position. He has for a few years. There was about a 2-year period where their safety was injured and he had to come play in the box. A lot of what Flores wanted him to do, and he excelled at it. Those were some of his best seasons. And so he's been playing out of position, and whatever rank, whatever you see on film, his skill set, his talents are not being put in the most conducive environment. But if Weaver does it right, brings him here, because you've got guys who could play that like lesser free safety role. And so Minkah could come here, be put in a conducive environment, and you could see his production increase and bring him to the top of the charts. And that's what it's all about. Now, will Weaver do that? I don't know. Will we get injuries where he can't do it? He's got to cover all the positions. I don't know. But it does look like if you put him at that role, guarding the middle, using his ability to be a field general, experience to trick these quarterbacks to throw in that pick in the robber role, picking off plays, making tackles. Dundee Dolphins said he had a 12% missed tackle rate. Got to go back and see how he does it, because if you're shooting from 5-10 yards, it's a little bit easier to miss tackles than when you're close. So I got to go check, see the leverage in the attack. But you go see his film. He makes those tackles. And when he ties into Dotson and Brooks, this is a very, very nice group of guys along with the front, along with the kid from the Jets and Iffy, to really guard this middle and top and allow the exteriors in zone for these cornerbacks who are a little bit questionable, aside from Noah, to do their job and not be overburdened in lots of man coverage. And I said that's what we're going to do here. We're going to take away the top, like teams have been doing to us. They're going to close the middle, force the boundary throws that are more difficult, even for guys like Allen and such, and then let that front dominate and, stop them, get them off schedule. And if not, they matriculate to red zone. Minkah is excellent in the red zone. He does struggle. When he was a cornerback here, he did struggle in mid to late clock, a little bit like Kohu. And so that I don't think we're going to see a lot of that stuff. Weaver looks like a guy who knows his players and doesn't put them in disadvantageous positions. And so if you got Minkah in there in the red zone and you're able to get some threes instead of touchdowns or maybe even turnovers, this offense run by McDaniel with all the top talent, all the investment, should be able to trade scores and get sevens instead of threes. And then put this defense in a situation where, while they're not stopping and keeping teams to zero, if they're limiting the output, getting some turnovers, this offense should be enough to get ahead and to win that way. And it should be. McDaniel's been here for 4 years. He's got almost the same guys, but upgraded a little bit on this offensive line, quote unquote, we'll see, to be the driving force of this team. And Minkah will be a consistency, a force of consistency to help this happen. So I think both teams won. We have a longer window. I'm seeing more and more people talking about, big time people talking about 2027, maybe 2026. And the Steelers are clearly in a short window. So I think this was a win for both teams. And while I don't like Greer, he was in almost an untenable situation. I do think this helps us out. And it's not us getting junk and getting fleeced by the Steelers. Now, ultimately, I think that Ramsey and Jonnu, they're going to offer more talent in total than Minkah alone. We got to see what happens with that 5th round pick. But even if it's close, parity, considering how difficult it was, this is or could be a win. Minkah doesn't play well. We don't use him right. He gets injured. We blow the 5th round pick. Well, that's a different story, but we've got to wait to see. But on the face of it, it's a win for both teams, and it's rational. Anyway, Cutis saying, be well, go Fins, Cutis out. Start building your own online sports book today by getting signed up with aceperhead.com service that'll allow you to book action on sports from all around the world.